we're going to do a quick little synopsis, and you should probably know what you are as we move forward. So no worries if you didn't do it.
Awesome. All right. We have 10:45 Central, 11:45 Eastern. So that means we're right on time. So Miss Tracy, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for coming back. If you were here yesterday, you know that I was talking about the importance of leadership and being a good leader, because if not, it could have some disastrous effects on your team. But one of the things that I did touch on is the DISC profile assessment. And I definitely want to share this with folks that have never heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, you're going to learn a whole lot in a very short period of time. If you have heard of it, chances are you heard of it in passing. You may have done a profile assessment and then looked at it and said, oh, that's cool, and then moved on with your life. But what I know to be true is I did, as I mentioned yesterday, I learned about the DISC profile in the Comm Center Manager class that I took back in 2016. And at that time in my life, I was transitioning from out of the PSAP into the private sector, and I was a mess. I didn't have the bandwidth to understand it, entertain it, or even process it at that time. But as time went on, in true fashion, I will run into things that will cause me to backslide a little bit in my PTSD journey. And what I like to do is always put new tools in my toolbox. And back in the beginning, I would say January of 2019, January of 2019, we had a kickoff at Rapid SOS for our public safety team out in California. And the person that was in charge at that time brought in Coach Gord McFarland from Coaching to Connect to communicate with us on understanding different, how people behave differently, what motivates them, what demotivates them. And the reason why I took to this is I was struggling at that time. And I think in general, we struggle with difficulty in understanding each other all the time, but I was really struggling with about 5 people that were in my life at that time. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out how to best communicate with these folks. And I was being demotivated in some aspects of my life with certain things. And I wanted folks to truly understand the importance of what I learned at that time. And it didn't take long into that presentation. What we did is prior to, we did a DISC profile assessment, and I gave you guys a link yesterday if you wanted to do that assessment on yourself so you had a better understanding of who you were as we went into this presentation. If you didn't do it, don't worry, because I'm going to give you a short little activity that will point out who you are, and then you can kind of understand where you fall into the spectrum as we move through the presentation. And then later, maybe you can do it and even have your folks do it. So I'll share the link again in the presentation, but here we go. So when Gord had started to communicate to us in this presentation, so we did our assessments. When I read it, it was spot on. And as I mentioned yesterday, I had no idea how answering 20 questions, if that, knew exactly who I was. But when I looked at it, I was like, yep, absolutely, 100%. Wow, I didn't even realize that about myself. But now that I look at it, for sure. And I briefly showed this slide yesterday, but I do want to add a little bit more to it because this phrase to me was life-changing. When Gord had said this in the session, he basically came right out at the beginning of the session and said, it's important to understand that people don't do things to you. They do them for themselves. You just get in the way, or sometimes you get in the way. And the reason why I chose the railroad tracks there is because I often talk about getting off of the track when an emotional derailment is about to happen. And a lot of times I will be that damsel in distress, hands are tied, laid out over the tracks, and I will get run over. And I do that to myself a lot. I will look too far into the things that people say, the things that they do, the things that they write in an email or in a chat or a text message. But once I heard Gord say this message, again, people don't do things to you. They do them for themselves. You just sometimes get in the way. I literally said in my head, what did he just say? And he said it again. And when he said it again, I knew that I had to sit up, take notes, and that I was going to be connected to this man for the rest of my life. In the last 2 years, or a little over a year and a half, I have taken several classes with Gord. I've been certified in human behavior as kind of a specialist, and it has changed my life. Yes, it is Gord McFarlane, and I will be happy to hook you up with his contact information later. But again, life-changing. So one of the things that he did teach us is, sorry, I'm trying to get my screen to change, is that people are different. And we know that people are different. If we were all the same, it would be a very either boring place or a very out of control and fun place all the time, and nothing would get done. But it's important to understand that people are predictably different. And when I say predictably different, I can almost predict how somebody is going to respond to a certain situation. So what does that mean? Remember the title of the class? If they're the problem, why do I have to change? That's where that predictability comes in. And I'll give you an example. When I am sending an email to someone and I know for a fact that they are a C personality, and I'll get into these in just a minute, but I know for a fact they're a C personality, which means you don't want grammatical errors in my email. You don't want me rambling on about nothing. All you want is the facts, and you want them to be accurate, and you want them to be grammatically correct. If I know that I am going to be sending that email to a C personality, which I'm going to give you a few examples between me and my boss, Michelle. We are polar opposites on the spectrum. I'm going to download Grammarly, and then I'm going to make sure that I read the email and I read it again to make sure that I am accommodating her needs. Why? So she doesn't get frustrated with me. So being predictably different allows me to change how I respond to other people, which in turn helps me. And I'm going to give you a few examples throughout the day. So we all know what the golden rule is, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, guess what? We're going to challenge that. And for the most part, this golden rule is for how we treat people. Like, I want to be treated nicely. I want to be treated kind. I want you to like me. But at the end of the day, we actually have to treat people differently. And what I mean by that is I don't need you to send me an email that doesn't have any grammatical errors. Why? Because chances are I'm not even going to notice them. That's just who I am. So I don't need you to treat me in the way that you want to be treated. And I know that may not make sense right now, but it will. We need to treat people in their comfort zone. We have to engage with them in their comfort zone. And we'll go ahead and explain that. So this DISC profile assessment has been around for a really long time. It is a model that provides a common language that people can use to better understand first themselves. Remember yesterday I talked about getting to know yourself first, finding where your blind spots are, finding where your success points are and celebrating those, and then having the ability to adapt your behavior in a group with others. So for me, I mentioned the statement yesterday about I wanted to stop pulling my own hair. And I'm actually going to show you a video that addresses that in just a little bit. But what I mean by that is, if you've ever seen an infant, a brand new baby, that somehow, some way reached up and grabbed their own hair, they are pulling their hair and they are hurting themselves. But they just don't know to kind of let go, and then it will stop the hurt. For so long, I just assumed that people were being crappy to me because they didn't like me, or they were being bold and forceful and direct and emotionless. All the things that are difficult for me to handle because they didn't like me. I took it personally when in fact it was them that needed those things. In a lot of situations, it has nothing to do with me. Nothing at all. So important things to know about DISC is, number one, it's an assessment, not a test. You can't get any of the answers wrong. But don't try to fool it. That's foolish. I've had folks say to me, well, I tried to answer the questions differently. Why? What's the point? Don't try to fool it. Always go with your first gut instinct answer. Because some folks will say, when you look at natural style versus environmental style, a lot of folks will say, well, I'm very different at work than I am at home. Okay, that's great. However, what you need to do is you need to answer the questions as who you are in general as a person. Go with your first gut instinct and answer the question as where you feel most comfortable in your general life. And then there is also an environmental style, which means when I go to work, I have to become a different person. And I have to become a different person because I have things that I have to do and get accomplished. So I may not be the person that I am all the time. And then as we talked about yesterday, the personality versus behavior. My personality is already etched in stone. I can't change that. It's who I am. But my behavior is definitely something that I can control. So when somebody says something to me along the lines, I'm going to just need you to not be so high energy, because that doesn't work well with me. Well, guess what? I'm high energy. That's part of my personality. I cannot change who I am, but I can make sure that I'm checking my behavior in certain circumstances. So when you all see me at the bar at the end of Embassy Suites, you're going to see a very high energy, charged, excited person that wants to hug everybody. But then if I have to go have a meeting with, I don't know, Apple, Google, Uber, one of these folks, I am not going to walk into that meeting the same way I just behaved at the Embassy Suites bar. That's my behavior. So being able to identify when you have to adjust your behavior is going to make your life a lot easier. Hence the title of the session, If They're the Problem, Why Do I Have to Change? Because you want to stop pulling your own hair, period. So for those that were not on yesterday, or if you didn't get a chance to take a picture of it, absolutely, Joyce, knowing your audience, right? That has been said for hundreds and hundreds of years. It is more important than we realize. But snap a picture of this particular website. This is the free one that I found gives the most information about who you are. You'll see that as we go through this, I am an IS. That is an extroverted people person primarily, but I am also an introverted people person. And I'm gonna kind of explain how that works. So if you haven't had a chance to do the assessment, if you have done the assessment, throw it in the comments as to what your letter is. Some folks can look and go, oh, okay, yeah, I figured that all day long. And then, oh, that explains a lot. But if you did have a chance to do it, throw it in the comments. If you didn't, after we do this little activity right here, throw it in there and we can just kind of see what the different topics are. So number one, right? Spot on. It's creepy how it's spot on, right? So Number one, there's 4 quadrants. You got D, I, S, and C. And we're going to ask the first question. Are you outgoing or are you reserved? And that's a very simple question. Now, I want you to take a couple of things out of answering that question. So first, take alcohol out of it. A lot of reserved people, where do you feel the most comfortable? If you ultimately have a few drinks and now you become outgoing, that's not who you really are. If you're the one that's kind of sitting off to the side just watching me dance on the table, then you're going to be more reserved. If at a given moment you're up on the table with me and we're having a great time, then you're more outgoing, right? So if you can walk into a room and chat with people and not feel uncomfortable, you can give your opinions with not having any fear about that, you're an outgoing person. If you feel more comfortable working behind the scenes, you don't want really to be seen, but you want to help, you're reserved. So that's the first component. So you're either going to be on the top if you're outgoing, or you're going to be on the bottom if you're reserved. Now we're going to break it into 2 other categories. Are you task driven or are you people driven? So task driven means you got a goal. You have to get something accomplished. You want it done organized. You need lists. You need procedures. You need things to be in their place. You need you need to get to the result, and it doesn't really matter how you're going to get to that result. You just got to get to the result. Now on the people side, you put people first. All day long, you put people first. Remember yesterday, you either think with your heart or you think with your brain. Now, it doesn't mean that the folks on the task side don't ever think about people. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're just trying to get a baseline for what your primary letter is. And now you can see on the comments on the side, some folks are putting C/D, C/DS. So basically what happens is when you take that exam, there's a line, and anything over the line is where you live in your baseline. So you can be over the line with 1 and 1 only. You can be over the line with 2, which means those are kind of where you feel the most comfortable is in those 2 roles. So I'm an IS. So it's all people all day long for me. And then some folks can actually have 3 above that midline. And I've actually seen a very small amount of people have all 4 above the midline. That's a really cool person. And don't fake it to try to get there. You'll get there if that's who you truly are. So you're either outgoing or reserved. So that's your top or bottom. And then you're task or people oriented. So let's fill in those boxes. So if you are outgoing and task oriented, you are a D personality. If you are outgoing and people driven, you are I personality. If you are a reserved people person, you are an S. And if you are a reserved task person, you are a C. So feel free to pop those in there. Don't be ashamed of what your letters are. And just understand that everything that I'm about to talk to you about and share with you, these letters, we need every one of these letters on our team. When you have folks, when you have a team of people, you want to seek out each group to be represented. But I also want you to understand is that while some of the descriptors may come off as negative, they're not negative. What makes it a negative situation is when you don't have emotional intelligence, like we talked about yesterday. And Roberta, absolutely. We all have all 4. It's just a matter of what level and what is your baseline. So if you take that exam, you'll see, now maybe you are one of those 1%ers that is all 4 right out of the gate. But I would love for you to take that assessment and see what it's actually pointing you out as your comfortable zone. Because we all kind of move into each group when we need to. So understanding the emotional intelligence piece, I'm going to refer to being in control and out of control. And that's just a short way to say with emotional intelligence and without emotional intelligence. Because I can assure you that me as an I, you're going to read a whole lot of positive, uplifting terms. And that's when I'm in control and I have emotional intelligence. When I'm out of control in my letter, it is not good. I become emotional and sensitive and talkative and kind of defiant and do behaviors or act in a way that is less than favorable. And that's the same for a D. A D is going to get stuff done. But if they don't have emotional intelligence, they are going to leave dead bodies in their wake. They're going to run people over. They're going to be like a electrical wire that snapped off the pole, just taking people out. So being able to be in control of your letter is really important. And now I'm going to go forward in kind of breaking each one of these out. But one of the things that Gord had said to me, which I thought was pretty profound as well, and it totally spoke to me because as an adult, I realized that there were other diagnoses that I didn't have, that I'll get into that in a minute. But one of the things that Gord said to me, and believe me, I'll disclaim, I am not a psychologist, whatever. I can't diagnose people. But what I do know is human behavior and how people behave and react in certain situations. And I know this to be somewhat valid in a sense. Now, so I'm not diagnosing you, but what he said to me was each one of these letters has a behavioral disorder attached to it. And when I say disorder, I'm using that lightly because I am diagnosed with my behavioral disorder, but I got to share the story with what happened. So as he was going through each one of these letters, he started with D because that's what we do. The word's disc, so we always start with D and then move in a clockwise location. So as he's telling me what the behavioral disorder for D is, he says D, often when they're not in control in their letter, could be diagnosed with ADD. And I said, oh my gosh, like, no, I'm totally ADD all over the place. I have the ADD. And he's like, no, hold on. And I'm like, no, seriously, I am totally ADD. He's like, hold on. And then he says the I personality, when they're kind of out of control in their letter, ADHD. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. I gotcha. And then S, fear, panic, and anxiety. And then C's, OCD. Now, again, I'm not labeling you, but some people can look at this and go, oh yeah, I'm totally a C and I am totally OCD. You cannot walk into my friend's house and load her dishwasher because everything has to be in the right way, right? Yeah, the light bulb's going off, right? So wait till you see, there's so much more to come. But just knowing what your primary letter is, I want you to focus for the rest of the session. I want you to focus on yourself. I want you to focus on your letter. And then when this is done, I will be happy to send you a PDF of this presentation, as long as you don't take it and use it for your own good, because some of it is copyrighted. But I want you to get the most out of this. But for this, I want you to focus solely on yourselves, right? Then you can take the other pieces and go look at the people around you and have a better understanding of them. Because the first thing I needed to do was learn who I was. So just a quick review. D's are extroverted, task-driven. I's are extroverted, people-driven. S's introverted, people-driven. And C's introverted, task-driven. And each one of these, when you start to recognize who's who, you're like, oh my God, now you can predict how they're going to behave. Okay? These little statements are just overall statements. Again, if you are a D, do not take them personally, okay? The basic D style is a personality that tends to get the job done fast because they are self-starters and they love to win. They are persuasive and they often succeed. They are willing to move ahead alone if it means attaining victory. They have many balls in the air and do not have time for idle chit-chat. Their traits are they're direct, demanding, dominant, doer, ambitious, forceful. They're a risk taker, challenging, and adventurous. Their basic need is a challenge. They need to win, they need to be in charge, and they need to be the decision maker. Their challenges, and when I say challenges, is their blind spot is they can be too blunt or harsh, they can be impatient, they do not like someone being emotional or sentimental, they lack patience and empathy, and they have no problem confronting someone. The best way to communicate with a D is to be short and to the point, leave emotion out of it, don't tell them what to do, rather ask them for help solving a problem. Their need to know is what? What do you need? Do you need me to get 100 agencies on board? Do you need me to go pick something up at the store? I don't need to know why you want to pick it up. I just need to, what do I have to do? And then just let me go to do it, okay? I will tell you that the D personality that is out of control and does not have emotional intelligence is the primary cause for my PTSD. And then if you look at the little birdie in the corner, I have a bird for each one of them. They're the eagle, okay? When you look at each one, you'll see how the eagle behaves, very D-like behavior. Now here is the I, okay? Yep, that's me, the party bird, right? All different colors, squawks a lot, totally me all day long. The basic I style tends to be energetic and influence others. They are usually the life of the party. They thrive in social environments. They like to entertain and make people laugh. Their traits: inspiring, magnetic, stimulating, impulsive, trusting, enthusiastic, expressive, charming, social and hopeful, fun, positive, and upbeat. Their basic need is social friendliness, interaction and approval, acknowledgments and compliments, inclusion, and to feel part of a team. And I want to stop there on the compliments. Some folks will look at an I personality, and I've been at the receiving end of this, and I've been accused of being self-centered, where I need people to tell me I'm amazing all the time. That's not what this is. I need you to tell me I'm doing a good job because I have a true need for being liked and people to receive me. So it's very different in being self-centered, okay? The challenge is, and Joyce, that's awesome. Like, this is what I'm talking about, right? Getting to understand people and accepting them for who they truly are, understanding they can't change, and sometimes ignoring the things that they can't change about themselves. So the challenges for myself and the I's, because remember, ADHD is a huge component. Challenges are organization, deadlines, detailed tasks, and follow through is often a huge challenge. They can be overly sensitive and emotional. They are talkative and may speak without thinking. They may exaggerate and they fear rejection and isolation. The best way to connect with an I is do not point out their shortcomings, acknowledge their success, do not ignore or isolate them, allow them to tell a story or two, compliment and show them you appreciate them. Do not shush them, just listen. And even if you're not really listening, pretend to listen. So when a D personality does this to me, it causes anxiety. My need to know, or the I's need to know, is who's going to be there? Who are my friends? Am I going to get to see my friends? But guess what? The I and the D are very much going to get to the same end result. They're just going to do it differently, right? I'm going to build a relationship first, and then I'm ultimately going to get to the finish line. And it's not a scam. It's just who I am. And then the D, they're going to just get to the finish line. And if they make friends along the way and they can go back and associate with folks, great. That's just who they are. The S personality is the dove. Calm, peaceful. I am both of these. More I, obviously. But then when you look at the other traits that I have, many of them are here. The basic style of an S is they tend to be steady and patient and prefer status quo. Don't upset the apple cart for these folks. It causes fear, panic, and anxiety. They are usually quiet and reserved, and they tend to avoid conflict all day long. I do not want to fight with you. I will sit back if I know that the conversation is going to drive conflict. Their traits are supportive, practical, passive, patient, reliable, stable, cooperative, steady, kind, and relaxed. Their basic need is a friendly, calm environment that is routine. They want to meet the team, they want to meet the needs, but they also want to support from at a distance. They don't care if they get the kudos. They don't care if they get the pat on the back. They just want to be part of the team. They want to be included. And then the challenges are they may hesitate to show how they really feel. They might not like abrupt change. They are not assertive, so they may get walked on, and they avoid conflict at all costs. The best way to connect with the C is to be kind and go easy. Do not yell at or criticize them. Take things slow and assure them that everything's going to be okay, and get to know them personally. We get a lot more accomplished with S and I personalities when you show you care about them. Their need to know is, how are we going to do this? And then the C is a very studious owl, and their personality tends to need structure and order without unnecessary interruptions, which is very challenging to have a conversation, a C and an I. And they're logical and precise, and they need quality and results. Their traits are cautious, calculating, competent, organized, precise, accurate, thorough, inquisitive, and can be a perfectionist. Their basic need is quality results, answers and information, complete accurate tasks, and to follow through. Challenges, they don't like to be wrong. They appear impersonal or headstrong. They appear to need perfection. They need to learn to worry less about when things are out of order. And sarcasm towards others. They do not like that. They don't process sarcasm like others. The best way to communicate with a C is to be accommodating and accountable, structured and productive, limit unnecessary interruptions, proofread and follow through, pay attention to detail, and use Grammarly. Their need to know is why. Why are we doing this? So I explained to you that I am an I, and my immediate boss is a C. The best part about my boss being a C in my world is she has serious emotional intelligence, and her secondary letter is an S. So we are a perfect fit. She gets me. She understands me. Sometimes things I do stress her out, but she has a true understanding of who I am. We've shared hotel rooms together at conferences. My side of the room looks like a hurricane went through. So I always take the part by the window. Why? So she doesn't have to walk through my tornado. Her side is very well organized and neat. I make the attempts, and here's where the emotional intelligence comes in. An out of control person that reads one of my emails may say, "Did you even make it out of the 3rd grade?" However, a socially or emotionally intelligent person like my boss said, "Hey, you know what I just downloaded? Grammarly. Have you ever seen that? It's so cool. You just download it onto your browser, and then there's like red and blue and all these colors. And if you spell a word wrong, and she made it fun for me. I was like, all right. And I downloaded it because I know where my blind spots are, and they're frustrating for me too. Don't think that those of us that have our blind spots love living there. I also know that following through is a challenge. But if you know me and you understand who I am as a person, it's going to relieve the stress that you cause. And one of the things that my boss and I learned is if she says things, because if you look at the eye and it says one of my challenges is deadlines, okay? We learned very quick that she can't say things like when you get a chance. She has to give me a deadline. Now, I work better under pressure and meeting deadlines, but if she says things like when you get a chance, that tells me that I have a window of an opportunity to watch 4 hours of stupid YouTube videos. So if you know somebody's an I and you need something from them, you have to give them that deadline. And even though they don't like it, it is beneficial to the relationship. So these are just some of the words that are used to describe these people when they have emotional intelligence and they're successful and they get things done. A D, they're assertive, ambitious, they're a driver, strong-willed, and decisive. They are the person that I call in when things start to get a little icky. If I'm dealing with a strong D personality, I'm going to bring in a D personality because my IS might cower a little bit, because I want to be friends with everybody. The I with emotional intelligence is warm, enthusiastic, social, persuasive, and charming. The S, patient, stable, predictable, consistent, and they're a good listener. And then C, they're detailed, careful, meticulous, systematic, and neat. And now this is what we look like without emotional intelligence. D's, they can be aggressive, demanding, egotistical, bossy, confrontational, and hurtful. And I, distracted, selfish, poor listener, dramatic, and emotional. The S, hesitant, resistant to change, passive, non-responsive. And I'm going to stop there for a minute. My husband is a very high S. That non-responsive right there took me until I learned this the best. This was the best piece of information because I spent the majority of my relationship with my husband saying this. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. There isn't anything wrong with the S that doesn't show a lot of emotion. It's who they are. They want to take care of people behind the scenes. Another example with my husband, when we have company over, he's cooking. He loves to cook. Then he's cleaning. Why? Because he wants me dancing on the table, entertaining everybody, because he doesn't want to be dancing on the table, entertaining anybody. He'd rather be in the kitchen doing the dishes. And forever, I would try to pressure him into coming out to the party when, in fact, that is not where he felt comfortable being. The S's can be slow, and they can tend to shut down when they're out of control. And then the C's can be critical, picky, fussy, hard to please, and a perfectionist. So just understand, am I in my letter? Am I in control? Am I out of control? And how are people perceiving me? How am I treating other people? So when I first did this assessment, this was my assessment. As you can see, my basic style is a very high I, and my S is right behind it. So that's why I am who I am, and I do what I do. And that's truly who I am. Now that you see that and you've known me for a while, it explains a lot of why I do what I do. In my environmental graph, when I'm around other people in groups, everything else goes lower. And then I just want to be the social butterfly, hanging out and talking and making friends with everybody. So can that be challenging at times? Yep, if there's something that needs to be accomplished. So I spend every day putting tools in my toolbox to get better at providing the things to the people that I need to, because I don't want them upset with me. When we did this back in January of 2019, this is what our team looked like. So as you can see, up in the I quadrant, there are only 4 of us that are actual I's primarily. And then that 20, the one right here, this IS, that's me. So these folks are actually extroverted people first, but they also contain D. And then I am full people. So it really is hard to wrangle me in when it's time to sit down and do task work. But guess what? That's why I'm the community engagement manager and they are not. And it doesn't mean that I'm better than them. It just means they don't want to be up here speaking to you. I do. That's where I feel safe. That's where I feel comfortable. So then as our team grew and I plugged in some of the rest of them, this is what happened. The people stayed the same, but then we started hiring. We have a whole lot of task and results driven people. So it doesn't mean that's wrong. It just means just be aware that I'm going to behave differently in a team call, just like your team. Do this for your team. And when you do this for your team, you can totally see why people do what they do and some things that you could do to maybe help accommodate them and help them live in a comfortable world, right? So this is just for fun before I get to wrap up and answer any questions, but I like to know who's these personalities. So these are celebrity personalities based on their letter. So there's your D list, okay? And then here's your I list. And what do you notice here? There are a lot of comedians and entertainers on that list, the folks that like to be up in front of each other, but do not ask them to balance your checkbook. No, nope, that is not gonna work. These are your S-style folks. These are the kind, quiet, they're gonna take care of you in a situation, but they're gonna do so from behind the scenes. And then here's your C personalities, okay? So again, and yes, I will be sharing the PowerPoint and then hopefully they will get it out to all the folks that attended. Or you can just shoot me an email when I put up my contact stuff and I'll be happy to send it over to you. But at the end of the day, this is what I was going to title this session. If they suck, why do I have to change? But the bottom line is we're all different and we're all different for various reasons. When I talked yesterday about what factors influence having emotional intelligence, I listed things like DNA, family and environment, or what is your environment in general, past history. A lot of people act a certain way based on things that have happened in their life. When I said, when you try to figure out your letter, and we were going through that little chart with the 4 of them on there, and I said, take out alcohol and other factors, I can assure you when I was dealing with my PTSD, if I had answered that question when I was dealing with that, I wouldn't have been outgoing, I would have been reserved because my circumstances were dictating that. But when you take the assessment and you do it honestly, based where you feel the most comfortable, you now know who you are first and foremost. And then you start looking at the behaviors of others or the other categories. And now I know that if I'm going to deal with a D, I'm going to be different. Okay. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to give you 2 examples for that. So this is how I have a better understanding. I spend the majority of my day asking myself, was that to me or was that who they are? And I'm looking too far into it and I'm taking it personally. Okay. And here are the examples of that. So I have 2 coworkers, one that is a D with emotional intelligence, is a man of faith, and then a D that does not have emotional intelligence and isn't a man of faith. And both of them send me the same request for information. Now, I'll give you a little bit of context. I had forgotten to book a booth for a conference. And I was one person that was, you know, doing all kinds of conference planning and all that when we first launched this thing. And I missed one of the conferences. And I got an email from the D with emotional intelligence. And it was a very thoughtful email. Started off with things like, "Hi, Tracy, how are you? I hope the family's well. Hey, just curious, did we miss the such and such conference?" And I was very upset with myself because I didn't want to do that. That bothers me when I make mistakes like that. So as I was responding back to his D personality, all of that email was going to say was, "Yes, I'm sorry we missed it. I have emailed the chair with the correct email so we don't miss it again." Period. That's it. That's all I was going to write. Before I learned about this, I would have written, "So sorry, Bill. I feel horrible. I have been so busy with this, this, and this, and that, and that, and this, and this." And he would not have read any of that because he's a D personality and he doesn't care about all those details. All he wants to know is the end result, right? So as I was writing that email back, very specifically being thoughtful and only going to put the details in that email, the other coworker sent a message on our instant chat, and in there it was a very quick, "Did we miss this conference?" And I know who he is, I know his personality, and I said, "Yes, I will CC you on the email that I'm sending to Bill regarding the same." And the response back was, "I don't need a book. I just need to know." And I know that. I know that as a D. Before this, I would have been really upset with the "I don't need a book." Why? Because those words to me say what I've heard my entire life. You talk too much. You're too involved. You have too much to say. And I said this yesterday, don't tell anybody they're too anything. That's not your place. But when you respond to folks, think about the wording and think about who you're speaking to. Now, somebody said to me, "Isn't this a lot?" Like, when I started doing this, I had a chart next to me for all the folks that worked on my team. Now I know who they all are very thoroughly. But I used to have a chart where I would say, all right, I got to send this person an email. And then I would look at the chart and I would make sure that the email is accommodating their style. And somebody said to me, "Why would you do that? Why would you take all that time?" Why? Because I spend a lot of time pulling my own hair. That is who I am. I worry what people think. I want people to be friendly. I want them to like me. I want to help. And when folks don't reciprocate that, yes, I do have to do that. And yes, I am going to do that. Why? Because once I started doing this, my life and my relationships were totally different. And my stress level was so reduced. Another example of understanding who somebody is, and then I'll have a few minutes for questions if anybody has them, is a gentleman sent me an email and he said in the email, "Joe Schmo told me about your product. I want more information." Okay, so in my mind, I'm like, that's a D personality. He has a mission. He has a goal. There's no, "Hi, how are you?" There's no nothing. So instead of me sending back the email that says, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. I truly appreciate it. After spending 20 years in the 911 center, blah, 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 I know better." So basically, I sent him back a message that says, "I have tomorrow and Wednesday available at 3:00. Let me know what works for you and I will send you a calendar invite." And within 30 seconds of sending it, there was a calendar invite already on my calendar. So what does it tell me? He likes to be in charge. He likes to drive the bus. So what did I do? I went into the calendar invite, and in the info box, I just put the letter D. Why? Because if I didn't, when I got on the call, I would have been, hi, Tracy Eldridge, which would have turned him off in a second. And when I got on the call, I was accommodating D, Tracy Eldridge. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how you get it. Do you want it? And when I started doing that, it made a huge, huge difference. Is it manipulating? Nope. It is truly understanding people and meeting them where they are. And that's how you better relationships. So before I open it up to any questions, I have to share, oh, there's a little baby, pulling their own hair. I have to share this last thought and then some exciting news if you didn't know. You need to become the chameleon. The chameleon can change colors, and we have colors here: red, green, blue, yellow. When you're walking into a situation, stop and ask yourself, what letter is this person? What color are they? And is there something that I can do to make this easier for them? I promise it'll be life-changing for you. And if you haven't heard, and again, there's the DISC personality test, popped it back in there at the end. So just in case you missed it and you wanna do it. But just in case you haven't heard, my work really truly believes in who I am and what I do and where I shine in the light of my true potential, like I said yesterday. They have given me the opportunity as part of my position to execute On Scene First with Tracy Eldridge. It's a podcast, it's a web show, it is all things engaging with my 911 family, both from a technical perspective and a mental health perspective. So if you haven't had a chance, like my Facebook, like the LinkedIn page, go back and listen to my podcast. The host is SoundCloud. It is on iTunes and Google Podcasts. There's 4 episodes out. One more is dropping tomorrow. If you want to be on my podcast, please reach out to me and we'll get that started. But here's my contact information. Friend me on Facebook. You guys know how I feel about this profession. And if I could bottle this education up and give it to everyone, I think our stress levels in the center would be dramatically reduced. So with that, thank you, Marty. I appreciate you loving the podcast. I love the one with my kid. I have to say, I love all of them, but the fact that my 17-year-old daughter got on there and proudly spoke about having a parent with PTSD, I was pretty proud of her. So, all right. Anybody have any questions? And yes, I will be sending out that PowerPoint to one of your admin folks, and then they can distribute it to the folks that were on the presentation and registered. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you, Tracy. I was informed by our conference chair, Justin Crowther, that the winner of the drawing for this session is Chris Wilson from Memphis Fire. So Chris,
Awesome.
Congratulations. And as always, Tracy, we're thankful for your time that you spend with us and contributing to this profession, and your transparency and your willingness to share about your journey and how it relates to a lot of things that we go through ourselves and in the daily struggles and life struggles as well, and also your contribution through Rapid SOS, which we all have benefited greatly from. So with that, I'm going to roll this back to Matthew and let you handle what needs to be done next. Thanks, you.
Guys. I'll catch up with you later. See you tomorrow morning for my see you this afternoon for my Rapid SOS session, and then tomorrow morning for a brand new session. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tracy. And I was going to say, you're not done for the day.
I know. I don't even know what day it is. I'm all over the place. Don't worry, though. My calendar and Siri will tell me when I need to be here.
Awesome. Thank you again, Tracy.
Bye, guys.
All right, guys, we are going to, a few minutes early into our lunch break.